What's up? What's up? Welcome back to another Shit Talk Fridays. I'm Gina.
And I'm Evo.
And tonight we're actually not live.
Yeah, we decided to do a pre-recording because
I'm not going to be available this coming Friday, so we didn't want to leave you high and dry. So we thought, what not better to do a pre-recorded and then hear your comments about the discussion that we're going to have tonight, so that when we come back to you the following Friday, maybe we'll have some things to talk about based on this conversation today, which I think is pretty interesting. We're also not drinking because it's not really Friday. And I cannot I can't introduce alcohol before Friday because a bitch will die.
Yeah, during the week.
No, it's a no.
And it's kind of early too.
Well, no, it's not. It's actually not that early, but we also drank a little bit more this weekend than normal because it was actually our anniversary yesterday. Evo and I have been married for 11 years. Mm-hmm. We celebrated that yesterday, which was Sunday. Today's Monday. And that is kind of one of the reasons why we are going to talk about this first topic, because yesterday, Evo and I, after dinner, we came home and, we had a couple of drinks and we were talking, and we were just talking about everything and anything.
Yeah, we were.
And the conversation got rolling based on the fact that a friend of mine had posted a song that her father used to play a lot. And I was like, oh my God, I love that song. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah. So I'll just bring you guys in on it. And ladies, it was a song called Set You Free from a group called Planet Soul. And if you don't know how it goes, come into my planet soul, set you free. Anyway, so I dipped into a memory about how I used to go clubbing.
Yeah, it was definitely a throwback. As soon as you put it on, all of these memories kind of started flooding into.
So that got the conversation rolling with us yesterday. So what wound up happening was I dipped into a memory and I thought about how I used to go clubbing, and then you and I were just talking about that kind of experience, and then it then rolled into us talking about an experience that I had with a guy that I was intimate with, obviously way before our relationship, and how funny that interaction was. And you and I were just talking about it like you and my homegirl.
Right. And then I started telling you about a similar experience that I had.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we were literally talking about it with in a way where a couple really wouldn't talk.
Yes.
It was almost like we were talking as we were talking as friends.
Yeah, well, we are definitely, I tell people all the time that you're my best friend. I literally tell you almost everything and anything. The only things that I actually refrain from telling Evo are the things that my friends tell me in privacy, that they're that they will say to me, hey, can you keep this between you and I? Or things that are really girly between me and my friends that have to do with being a woman, that I just don't even think that
things that I probably don't even need to know. So,
and I think same goes for you too.
I have a hard enough time keeping things in my head to begin with, so there's no need to fill it with stuff that's unnecessary. I think you're doing me a favor.
Yeah. I'm having pity on you.
Yeah. Okay. I can't have too much shit in my head.
So it got me thinking about these type of conversations, are couples having these type of conversations? Because honestly, we even got graphic last night. I literally told you, how the whole situation between this guy and I kind of unfolded, and it wound up being a funny story at the end, but I was graphic with you, and I honestly had no hesitation in telling you that, and vice versa. When you told me your story about an interaction that you had with a girl and you were intimate with her, and it again wind up being more funny at the end, there was zero hesitation. Why do you think that you and I are able to do that and potentially other couples are not?
So if I had to think back in previous relationships, and kind of remember times where those conversations would probably be uncomfortable, I would have to say that those are the days that I was probably not as secure in myself as I am now as a man. And so
you're saying that the conversations potentially were uncomfortable when a girl was talking to you about them, or you talking to the girl about
just
them?
Just me speaking to a girl about maybe, or me hearing about past experiences from the person that I'm currently with. Those situations back then would make me feel uncomfortable.
And you feel like it was based off of your security as
I wasn't secure. I wasn't secure within myself about who I was. I almost felt uncomfortable hearing this person talk about being with someone else, even though it was in the past. You know what I mean? I know at some point I became very secure within myself, and those things didn't matter no more. So even fast forward to us, last night, and in many other occasions where we've had conversations like that, I'm very secure within myself, and I know that I don't. That's not something like that's not going to bother me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really at least for me as a whole, what enables me to be able to talk about those things. Just my own personal confidence in myself.
Yeah.
To know that I can hear these things from you, and I know that, one, you're being very honest and open with me, which I appreciate. And two, if I have to be comfortable enough for you to talk to me like that, so that our relationship can go beyond, just a couple, because at the end of the day, we're much more than that. I think couples should be much more than that. And I think that, being able to separate, being a couple and then being friends, has a lot to do with why people can't go there.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. I do think that there is definitely something that has to do with confidence. Me personally, when I think about having those conversations with you, why I don't hesitate and why I'm so comfortable doing with it is I myself have never been really a jealous person. And I do think that there are times that when two people, man and woman, or woman and woman, or man and man, whatever the dynamic is, if that person has some, deep-rooted jealousy, when they hear something like that, I think it potentially could make them feel angry or jealous towards that person's past experience.
Right.
Because of how they feel about them not being them with that person, even though it was something past, which I find really interesting. But I do think that jealousy is rooted in control. So when one person can't control potentially what another person is doing and how that person is acting, then they become jealous of that person's behavior, that person's, that person's conversation maybe that they're having with another person. So I feel like, yes, it could be jealousy, but it's also a lack of control. And I've never been that type of person. I'm very much about controlling myself. I've never really been about controlling another person. I feel like I learned early on in life that whoever I'm with at any given time, whether it's someone I'm just dating, someone I'm in a serious relationship with, or someone I'm just having a good time with, as much as I may like that person, as much as I may want things to go a certain way, I cannot control that person. I cannot stop that person or make that person do anything that they themselves don't want to do. So when I think about that, I think about when I read things on social media that I've more recently read, when someone would say something like, oh, well, that's why he cheated, or that's why she cheated. And they'll kind of potentially put the blame on the other person, the person that was cheated on.
Right.
And I always found that dynamic so interesting, because I'm like, but that person can't control what another person does. So I very early on just kind of let go of that and just chose to be very unjealous, very non-controlling. And so when I hear those type of stories from you, or any person for that matter that passed in my past, I'm just looking at it like this person's just sharing with me something that they experienced in their life, and whether it was something that they really enjoyed, because there's stories that you have told me that you really enjoyed yourself, and that may be something that you and I have not experienced together. I almost am happy to hear it, because I'm happy to know that you feel that confident and you feel that secure to have that conversation with me. So again, like going back to what you said, I think that it definitely is about confidence, but it has to be on both ends. And I think I'm confident in the fact that I'm not jealous and I'm non-controlling. So when I hear those type of things, it doesn't spark anything in me.
Right. I mean, excuse me. Exactly. So like for me, like that just kind of leads back to exactly what I was saying, was that the way I see it is that it all kind of falls back into like being insecure with yourself. You know, for example, like if we're having these conversations, I know that up until this point, as long as I've done the best that I can do, the best that I can be, and as long as I've given everything that I can give you, right? Mm-hmm. When you're telling me these things, one, you're being open with me, and two, I have to trust within myself that I've done everything that I can to know that when you're telling me these things, that you're telling me out of like, you know, genuine honesty and genuine openness, rather than there's something underlying there that, you know, you're kind of like, that I need to be jealous about. You know, that there's something there that I need to be concerned about. No, I'm just going to be secure within myself to know that regardless of how you're feeling and how that experience may make you feel, that there's nothing that I can do about that. Yeah. There's nothing that I can change about that. All I can do is just be content with the effort that I'm putting forth, and hope and be confident that it's everything that you're going to need so that I don't have to be jealous over something.
I also think that if you potentially think it's not everything I need, I think you're more than willing just to have a conversation with me about
absolutely
if it's not meeting that mark. So, you know, when we were talking about these things last night, and like it kind of sparked this thought in my head about like other people, I know for a fact that there are many people in relationships that do not have these type of conversations, that they steer away from them. I have had conversations with friends, with coworkers, about things that maybe you and I have done or you and I have talked about, and people will openly say to me, I could never do that. I could never have that conversation. And let me just say this, and then you could, I've actually even had the situation where I've seen people in a relationship act one way, and then when their partner comes around, they refrain. So I'm just going to give you an example. Let me just give you an example.
I was just about to touch on that.
I want to give you an example of a time that I saw this happen, that I remember being so kind of mind blown about it. I knew someone in my past who I'm still, you know, occasionally I talk to this person. They like to gamble. And it was something that they had full control over. It wasn't something that was out of control, but their partner was not about that. Like their partner was like not for them doing it. So their partner used to travel for work. And every single time that person's partner would travel for work, that person was driving to Atlantic City, like at the drop of a dime, and finding ways to conceal what they were doing so that their partner wouldn't know, so that it wouldn't cause an issue. And I was always so mind blown by that, because I was like, they weren't married yet, but they were going to get married. I'm like, how long are you going to be able to keep up this facade? Like, right. I find this so crazy that you think that this shit is going to work. Because I think one or two things are going to happen. Either the spouse is going to find out and it's going to be like a fucking blow up, or the person who's concealing it is going to fucking erupt like a volcano.
Right. So I believe that the reason people can't have these conversations is because there is there's doubt that exists between that relationship. And let me explain what I mean. So what I mean is that, like, let's just say that I have secrets that I keep from you, but because I have those secrets, there's a part of my brain that may be wired with some guilt, but that I'm doing a very good job of, you know,
holding it back,
right? But I know I'm lying to you. I know I'm keeping something from you. I know that there's something going on in my subconscious that you don't know about, that I'm purposely keeping from you, right?
Okay.
So so now let's say we have a conversation and you tell me something about an experience that you had. I may think that there's something there that you're not telling me, even though you're being genuinely honest with me. Even though you're being genuinely honest with me, I know that I'm lying to you. Right? And so, yeah, you're being honest with me right now, but you could be lying to me too, because I'm carrying myself through this relationship, and you don't know that I'm lying to you. So now I'm wondering, are you lying to me about that? And so there comes the jealousy.
You know what that?
There comes the insecurity.
You know what that reminds me of? When I used to smoke weed when I was younger, and I know you can. I know you can relate to this. You would smoke, and then you would think everybody was high. You were like, "Yo, you high? This person looking at me." There was always this. It was a level of paranoia.
Yeah, that happens.
But I'm just relating it to what you're saying. So there's a level of paranoia there because you're concealing something on a daily basis. So if I were then to share something with you in the same realm of something that you're concealing, then you yourself are like,
right,
is he or she not telling me the truth?
So here's how I think that we're able to talk about the things that we talk about and be completely comfortable in talking about them is because we have a level of honesty and openness in our relationship that when it comes to being vulnerable with each other and sharing things with each other that are very personal, we know that it's just complete. There's nothing else there but vulnerability and honesty. You know what I mean? And it comes from both sides. Like it has to be. I know that I have a level of like my cards are on the table with you. So when I tell you something, or you tell me something, I know that I know that I'm not holding anything back, and I'm giving that to you. So that I know that I'm hoping. I would always hope, and I know this, that you could recognize that, and I would receive that in return. And so when you put those two things together, I think you have a great chemistry of two people that are able to talk and communicate about things because there is no doubt. There's you know what I'm saying, like there's complete confidence in each other and in themselves and what they're saying, and it creates that environment where two people can just comfortably talk about things. You know, it's like two best friends.
Yes, I would say though, I think there also has to be a level of let me see how I could say this. You can't be afraid to potentially hurt the other person's feelings. I think that there's been times that you and I have had conversations that are tough.
Yeah. And
I have said to you, you may not want to hear this and this may get you upset, but I'm going to tell you this. Because it may at that point have been my experience or have been my feelings. But I have stressed to you that if I don't say these things to you, that it's going to boil into something even worse.
Right.
And I think in other relationships, people potentially are afraid to have those really intense conversations in fear of pushing the other person away, because potentially maybe the other person can't handle what is being said to them.
Right.
And when I think about that, I know there has been times in my life that I potentially have thought about not having those type of conversations in fear of that. I can reflect upon the beginning of our relationship. I liked you so much that there were times that I was afraid to say things to you because I was like, if I tell this guy that I don't like him touching my food, and that's like a big no-no for me. And I know that's something really stupid, but that's just the example that I'm giving.
I'm sure you're not alone with that.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let me think of an example that is really okay. I have an example. There was a time that you and I went out together, and it was four of us. It was me and another girl, and you and another guy. And once I start telling this story, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. We went out, and you got a little bit more intoxicated. You and your friend got a little bit more intoxicated than me and my friend because when I was the driver. And on our way back to your apartment, because we weren't living together at the time, you and your friend were cracking jokes and you were taking it a little too far.
Okay, I remember. I
remember
this, yeah.
And I remember just saying to myself, okay, I'm going to let this rock right now because I know that he's not in his right mind, but I'm also not going to let him think that this is okay. But there was still a fear there, Evo, because I remember when I dropped you off, you were still... I
had some loose lips.
Oh yeah, you were. I remember. You went off the deep end that night, and I remember you going to the top of your stairs and you looking at me, and you said something like "still off the wall," and I just looked at you, and I just put the car in drive and I just drove off. I didn't say goodbye to you. But let me tell you, the level of fear that was deep down inside of me, that could have potentially been the last time you and I spoke, because you could have been so offended by that. Because, sometimes people wake up the next day.
So you had a fear of telling me how you felt.
No, I had a fear that you were going to be so, like, fuck her.
If what?
Because
why would I say that?
Because I shunned you.
Okay.
Because that night, I was just like, whatever, yo. Like, I literally just whatevered you the whole night. And then when you were like, so what? You not going to say nothing? And then I just drove off. There are certain situations in a relationship where a person will say, oh, fuck her then, or fuck him then. And I had that fear but I needed to stay true to myself because that's who I was. And I was willing to take that risk. I was willing to take that risk that potentially could be the last time we spoke. And I know that happens a lot of the times in people's relationship. They're afraid to say something to their partner, whether it be about something that partner may have done to them, something that they want the partner to do with them, or something that they have hopes of in the future. But these are can be really sticky conversations. Like something that I think about, because as a girl, I've had a lot of girls come to me and tell me about there may be something lacking in their intimacy with their partner. And I'm like, have you spoken to him about it or her about it? And they're like, no. And I'm like always so confused by that. And I know it's because they're afraid that if they tell their partner, they're going to hurt their partner's ego.
Let's be clear on something. All right. We talk about this communication thing, and we talk about, being open with each other and having these conversations that are very personal, but at the same time, very friend-like, with us when we're in a relationship.
But I'm also talking about I'm also talking about things that could be like not friend-like.
Right. I know. I'm just kind of recapping where we started and then kind of like coming into what you're saying. Where you have conversations that are definitely about issues, but one person might be fearful of saying something to the other because they're afraid of
gonna hurt that person's ego,
hurt that person's feelings, right?
Ego or feelings.
So what I wanted to point out was that we need to be clear that this thing doesn't happen overnight. Getting to this point is not something that you can have in one conversation, because if it was, everybody would be there.
Agreed.
This is something that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of disagreement. It takes a lot of understanding of one another's feelings. It takes a lot of being offended and then coming back and then realizing how that person feels and then coming back with understanding. There is a long journey that has to happen in order to get to a place where two people can fully understand each other, and then be comfortable enough to speak to each other because they really know each other well. But there has to be that phase that you go through of understanding one another. There has to be that trial and error phase where you're trying things with the person, and maybe you're trying to communicate with them and it's not working to some degree, right? But the effort, the want to want to be together is always still there. Our road wasn't peaches and cream.
Oh,
you know what I
mean?
Like
not even in the slightest.
I want everybody to know that yes, like
it's still not.
Yeah, but we're at a point right now where we can comfortably talk about many things. All right, but it didn't start off like that. But what was there at the core was the want to be with each other, right? At a core. But it was just a lot of working with each other and trying to understand each other. And it's my job as her partner to relate to her. That's what a relationship is. It's the core basis of the word relationship. Is you have to be able to relate. If you can't relate with one another, then you have no relationship. So your job as a partner is to put your feelings aside and relate to everything that this person that you're with. You really have to relate to their feelings and understand them, and then reciprocate that knowledge to them. Like, I understand you. I understand how you feel. I relate to how you're feeling, and here's how I'm going to address your concerns. That's how I'm going to earn your love, by constantly showing you that I understand you, I see you, I respect your feelings, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna address those concerns of yours. You know what I mean? And then in the same way, it's your job to reciprocate that to me. And I think that when you put that together, you really build a strong foundation that you can stand on, that will last, many, many years down the line. But again, it's not an overnight thing. You know what I'm saying? The funny thing is like there's a saying, a comic says, like, you always want to be something, but you really don't want to be that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea of it, but you don't want to go through what you got to go through to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, people say, like they want to, this perfect relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the journey of relating to each other
Mm-hmm.
that you have to go through in order to get to that end result? You have to build a relationship.
Well, that road is really hard.
Yes.
And it's, from everything that you were saying, the one thing stuck out to me immediately was the ego part of it. A person has to be able to let go of their ego when they're trying to relate to another person. And I myself am guilty of that. I am guilty of, there have been times I did not want to let go of my ego. And something that I've learned more recently, in the past, I want to say 5 years. And like we said previously, we've been married 11 years. I've known you 20 years. Is that I used to think that in a relationship, when we were having a disagreement, I needed to prove that I was right in order for the disagreement to come to an end. And then, because that was my ego talking.
Right.
And once I learned how to separate myself, Gina, from my ego, it no longer became about that. I do think that there are still couples that someone or both of them are still stuck in that ego thing. Yeah. You and I can be petty as fuck.
Yes. And like we both have our own egos.
Yes.
That we've had to deal with throughout our relationship.
But there are times that I literally say to myself, wow, this is my ego talking right now. This is not Gina talking. I don't like, and it's so hard for me sometimes to let that go, because you and I are both very power hungry people. We're very stubborn. So to let that go is to let go of like a characteristic of who I am. Right. And I think that there is such vulnerability in that it's scary. And I know for certain that I've seen people in relationships not want to be in that vulnerable state. Right. And they want to almost kind of have the upper hand.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
but at the same time, I'm not saying it like you and I let it go and we're letting each other walk over each other. You like really gotta fucking find that soft spot.
It's a dance.
Not the soft spot. The sweet spot. No, the sweet spot. Yeah.
It's a dance. It's definitely a dance that you have to play. I mean, I know that a lot of the success that I feel like I've had in being able to relate to you is doing exactly that. Being able to look at myself and check myself and to say that, yo, you're ego tripping right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the moment that I do that and I take that ego and I set it aside, all of a sudden this whole new perspective on what's in front of me is now clear. You know what I mean? And I can address it in a different way. But I just think that the most impactful thing is doing everything that I can to relate to you. And then I feel like that once you recognize that you have somebody in front of you that is relating to how you feel, in turn, I feel like that just makes you love me more.
I would 100% agree with that. I actually think about a couple of days ago, we got into an argument over something. I really don't remember, but I remember me being very angry, me approaching you about it, and then us, kind of like not speaking for a little bit because like, we were both pretty heated. And I remember saying to myself, like, this guy needs to come and talk to me. Like, if he doesn't come and talk to me, again, that was my ego talk. If he doesn't come and talk to me, then what? Because nothing was gonna happen. But I just remember me, like, that was my thought process, and because I know, I still struggle with this, and like this is the journey. But you came and you talked to me, and I was like, whew, thank God that happened, because I don't know where this bitch was going with this. I didn't know where the hell I was going with this thought process. But and saying that it made me love you more. Yeah, it definitely gave me that. Like you literally took that weight off of my shoulders, because you know that I don't like to carry that type of heat. When we're arguing. But it definitely makes me feel more strongly about you, because you're recognizing that something needs to be spoken about. But I will say that when people are having these type of conversations, I know that it can be scary because you potentially are sharing things with your partner.
Yes.
And like I said before, maybe you share things with your partner that you maybe have interest in that your partner doesn't have interest in.
Yeah.
So I give you an example. You shared a story with me about how one time you left with 2 girls, and I was just like, wait, you just like dipped, like you just met these chicks and you just went, had a good time, and you were like, yeah. And I was like, wow. Like I was so mind blown by that, because I was like, well, one, as a girl, I'm not personally just dipping off with anybody that I just met, because I'm afraid of getting chopped fuck up into little pieces and put in the fucking trunk. I think men don't have to really worry about that as much.
Yeah, for sure.
But not to say that it doesn't happen. And that is something that you and I never really talked about. We never talked about that dynamic in the intimacy world. And I remember just kind of being like, really, Evo? Because you Mr. Rico Suave, like I would not take you for like that raunchy type of shit. And you were like, yeah, that was me. And like I think that is the situation where somebody could turn around and be like,
get judgmental. Yeah,
like what do you mean? Like you like that stuff? Like, but then I realized that that's a reflection on me.
Right.
That's my insecurity talking. That's me talking. And I think it's so hard for someone to identify that way, because self-awareness is so insane.
Yeah.
When it comes to these type, like, okay, so let me just recap real quick. I feel like there's a few factors here. Self-awareness.
Yes.
Vulnerability, a lack of jealousy, and a confidence level. Like I think these are like pillars.
Yeah. So I want to point out something that that we've heard before, that I think I brought to your attention, that I heard from a guru, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes. And I mean, so here's an example on how difficult it is for someone to see themselves and take the time to self-reflect on themselves, right? And the guru said, you can be in a room full of people, and if you have bad breath, everyone in the room will know, and you're the last person to know, right? Even though your nose is right above your mouth, you will be the last one to know that you have bad breath. Now, that just tells you how much, as a human being, all we do is project outwards and never take the moment to reflect with ourselves and be aware of what we're doing and how we are projecting ourselves. All right. And the example of the nose on top of the mouth with the bad breath and not even knowing that the bad breath is there is just to show you how wired we are to just project outwards without no reflection back inwards. So when someone takes an effort to always reflect on themselves, I think that's the key level, the key of building security within oneself, is always knowing how you carry yourself and then tweaking that along the way. You know what I mean? Adjusting it and making it something so that when now when you move in your room, certain signals, you know that, okay, I'm out of line. You know when your ego is is acting a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that's key. That's definitely key.
I read a book called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, and he talks about that. He used the metaphor of the rider and the elephant, and there are times that the elephant is talking, not the rider. You're the rider, but the elephant is the person that is speaking, and that's your ego.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times the rider literally takes the back seat. Like the rider just stays quiet and your ego talks for you all the time. And there are so many times I want to say that over the last 5 to 6 years, I've had some intense enlightenment about ego and about self-awareness that I personally never had, because I was really wrapped up in my career. Actually, no, not my career. I was really wrapped up in my job, and really just you and I like achieving like those, the American dream things. So like, because we were so wrapped up in those things, like my brain or my mind rather, really didn't have the time to like think about self-awareness. I was really just so caught up in that shit. And I realized that one of the things now that I like somewhat despise is small talk. Because a lot of this time, small talk is rooted in the ego. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, how are you? What do you do for a living? Right. Tell me about yourself. It's a person wanting to know where you are at in your life, so then they can either tell you that they're doing better than you, or they're at the same level as you, or then they may not share that they're not doing as well as you. And I find that so interesting. So more recently, I've just been holding back on having conversations that are, you would consider small talk, with people that are not, that I've known for a long time, that I haven't known for a long time. And I definitely think that it has helped me throughout, like, as a whole. But when I think about it in a relationship term, my ego now talks less and Gina talks more.
Okay.
And it definitely took a lot for me to get to that point, because my ego was relentless. Because for me, I thought, in reflection, I thought my ego got me to where I am. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that like unwavering, like I'm gonna do it. I don't give a fuck. You know, like my ego was always pushing me in that direction. And sometimes the real Gina would be inside fucking trembling like a little kid. And I think sometimes that's the dynamic that happens in a relationship, where two people, the ego is really carrying their relationship, and the true person is somewhere deep down buried inside. And then one day, how many times have you heard people say in a relationship, I don't even know who the fuck I was married to. Yeah. I don't even know who that person was. Because I'm telling you, I think what happens is eventually somebody fucking pops. Somebody explodes. And I had that explosion in my life due to childhood trauma that I was suppressing for a long time, and it just fucking popped up one day. So that's how I can relate to kind of really trying to put away who you are, like stuffing yourself in a box and letting your elephant fucking take you on a journey, and you just sitting back and enjoying the ride. And when I read that book, I mean, the book actually has a lot of psychological terms that, like, maybe it wasn't the easiest for me to understand, but I definitely understood that term of like letting your ego fucking take you for a ride. And unfortunately, I think in a lot of relationships, when that happens, it could be the demise of relationship, because that person never really knows who the fuck they're with.
Well, yeah, of course that's the demise of the relationship. I mean, I don't think that you can generally have a what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think that you can generally have a relationship with longevity without complete openness and honesty, right? So I feel like, and I'm speaking for myself and my own experience, you know, and I really want to kind of like bring this out to this newer generation, because I feel like I see a lot of things on social media where like dating and relationships now are nothing like they were when we were dating. You know, it's almost like that they're like the complete opposite. You know, people.
How so?
Because from what I'm seeing, it's like, you know, dating now is about, you know, nobody wants to be in a relationship. Everybody wants to hook up. Everybody's got 1,000 options. People are
that's interesting.
You're not, you know, they're really like always kind of like fake about who they really are, and have like some persona that they've you know, some, because of social media and like, you know, this persona that you've created, you know, people kind of really like hold back who they really are. You know, because they have an image that they have now,
that they're looking to portray,
that they were not only looking to portray, that they've projected online and in social media, in a media aspect. And so it's almost a little bit, it's almost like a little bit harder to get down to the root of who a person really is, because they're living this life that they've projected. Okay. And I'm just getting this based on from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Right?
I would.
Of course you would disagree.
Hey, Whoa, I've agreed with a lot of the stuff you said thus far.
Okay, I know that, but it's very typical of you to like for me to say something how I feel and then be like,
no.
I would partially disagree on that, because you have your own point of view, which is fine. This is not.
I wouldn't say that this is how you feel. I would say that this is an observation you've made.
Yes, I just said that.
Okay, so
this is from what I've seen.
So I'm gonna say why can I say why I disagree with that?
I didn't. You're like you were interrupting. What, you know, like in mid. What I was in the middle of getting to something.
Okay, go ahead, continue, and then I'll tell you why I see things a little differently.
What I was saying is that I feel that it's very important in order for you to be honest and open with someone, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to act 100% comfortably with the person that you're with. So it is my job at some point to be completely open with you about who I am as a person and what you have in front of you, so that you have the opportunity to either reject it or accept it. Right? I have to take the chance. I have to risk and be vulnerable enough to open up everything to you so that you can see who I am in full as a person. All right? And then give you the decision whether you want to accept me for who I am. If you choose to accept me for who I am, right, then not only do you know 100% the person that you're dealing with, but now I know that I can tell you anything and say anything to you because you know everything about me and be completely comfortable with it. You know what I'm saying? But without taking that risk, there is no chance of reaping that reward.
Okay. I'm a little confused how that ties into the new generation.
Because I feel that from what I've seen, okay, and remember I said this just from what I've seen.
Okay.
All right. All right. It's my observation,
which is fine,
that a lot of that is not happening. People are, and I'm not saying that it didn't happen in our generation, right?
But that is what you're saying.
No. What I'm saying it's happening more in this generation. There's more of a society of it because of the pressures of projecting some type of image that possibly ain't true. Okay, so what I'm saying is that think about it like this. Before social media, yes, that did happen, right? But you had a lot less people seeing that other people were doing that. You understand what I'm saying?
So can I just stop you right there? Because you're going to go into something else and I need to tell you.
Okay.
You just made my point for me. That's exactly what the difference is. I don't think that has anything to do with the difference in the generations. There's just more visibility now. And that is with anything. So what you're saying is that because of the pressures of social media, there are people now that are portraying or projecting a particular persona because of the pressures of what they see on social media. So then when they're trying to date, they potentially are not being real with the person because of these pressures. I don't think that it's any different in any other generation. I think that those pressures still were there. They were just different. The only difference between now and back then is that there is more of a view on it. So one of my favorite spokespeople, Gary Vee, he talks about this all the time. People will say things to him like, don't you think that social media is detrimental to this generation? And, don't you think that, too much of it is a bad thing? And Gary Vee will always say that it's not detrimental. It's only exposing who we really are. I think that people have always been like that. We just see it more now. Like, for example, the news. When we were younger, there was war happening. There was killings happening. There was, all these travesties that still happened in this day. But when you and I were younger, we had to catch it on the TV. We had to either catch it. And when I say catch it, like we would have to sit down, turn on the TV, or maybe we heard something in the car. But now people are walking around with a device in their pocket or in their hand at any given moment where they could receive that in an instant. But that doesn't mean... Could you actually just turn around for 1 second and clear that?
Clear it? What do you want me to do?
Just move it. Take the thing. We actually, ladies and gentlemen, we actually just have a spider that's just like, hey, how you doing?
What do you like me to do with this?
I don't know. Just drop him on the floor. There you go.
All right, buddy. See you later.
I just didn't want it to get on Evo. We're in that time of the year where like the little critters are starting to come out. Anyway, so we are actually living currently in the best time that we've ever lived in. We have less war, we have less murders, we have less violence than we've ever had, even though we see so much more of it because of the access. So I don't think that it's different. I just think we see it
All
more.
right. So
that's why I disagree.
So I understand why we have less war. All right.
Do you?
Yes, I would think because of social media and the ability to be able to broadcast a lot of the realness of what it is, that's something that typically people don't want. People didn't want it back then. You know, there was a big, anti-war movement and things like that. But now more so, because of, I feel like that is amplified. It was existing back then, and because of social media, it is amplified more. So now it is more so people don't want it, right?
Okay, yes, I don't think that's I don't think that's why we don't have war. But okay,
right. But what I'm saying to that is that you're saying now more so than ever, we have less war, right? You're saying in this time, right? There's less of it.
There is a complete lack of it. Yes,
there's a complete lack of it, right? Because of the exposure that we are able to see now. Because
I don't think that's why.
Okay, so you don't think that because of the growth in technology and the ability for us to be able to communicate and understand what's really going on around the world, okay, and not having to just depend on what our governments are telling us, right? To be able to have an actual connection with direct data.
No, I don't think
so.
That's
why
why
do you feel that it is less?
That is completely different conversation.
Okay,
I'm not going to go into that.
So,
I just don't think that's why.
So what I'm saying to you is that based on what I was saying, I feel that before social media, before technology, before phones and devices, yes, there were people, going around and portraying personas of people who they really weren't, right? But what I'm saying is that there were many people out there that were unaware that this type of behavior was a thing. Okay? Because you have a yin and a yang to everything, right? So you have people that are like that, and you have people who aren't like that, right? So there's plenty of people out there that didn't act like that, and they were unaware that even people act like that. What I'm saying to you is that now that you have the technological advancements that we've had, it has amplified those behaviors and made a lot more people able to be aware of these type of behaviors and personalities.
But that's not originally what you said.
Okay, that's what I'm. Okay, so maybe that's not what you understood, but that's exactly what I meant.
Okay, whether that's what you meant or maybe, but that's not what you said.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You said you made a comparison of how this generation behaves versus how past generations behaved, and you were saying that because of social media, people now have like a stressor on them to portray a certain
more so.
Yeah, more so. But you right now you're saying something totally different.
The phrase "more so" means that it was so then, but it's more so now.
And I explained to you that it's not. Where I disagree is that it's not more so. There are not more people doing it. There's just more exposure.
Okay. Again, this is now we're talking about subjective, right? That is your subjective view. Like it's just that is mine. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. I believe that people that potentially may have not been aware have the ability to be more aware now because of their ability to be able to see more.
Yes, which I agree with that.
So that's what I'm saying. That's the amplification that I'm talking about.
I get that, but what you said is that there are more people acting. What you said is that in this generation that there are more people acting not as of themselves because of social media. That's what you said initially.
Yes.
Okay. But what you're saying now is that more people are aware of it because of the exposure. That's completely two opposite things.
Okay. What I'm saying is that there's more people that are able to be able to that are exposed to these behaviors, therefore being able to act that way themselves. Okay. If they did not have the ability to see these things on devices that are so conveniently in the palm of their hands, okay, I believe that there would be less of it. Okay, the ability for us to be able to connect with each other through devices on our hands has only amplified behaviors.
Can I be honest? I feel like you're confusing the two things that you're saying.
Okay, I disagree, but fine. I mean,
I'm just going to tell you exactly what it is that I'm hearing from you. Initially, when you started this conversation, you said that you felt like because of the pressure of social media, that this generation, this youngest generation, and I don't think you mean the youngest generation. I think you mean, because the youngest generation is Generation Alpha, which is our daughter's generation. You mean Gen Zs. That because of the pressure of social media, that there are a lot of people who are not portraying who they really are. That is initially what you said. And then I said that I disagree. I don't think that there are more people doing it. I just think that there's more of a visibility that, like, because we have devices where we can see things at any given moment, we just see people doing it more than we saw it before. But that doesn't mean that there's actually more people doing it. But then now you're saying because of social media, there are people that can see it more, so they're more aware of it. But the two things are separate, because you were saying that there were more people doing it, and now you're saying that there's more people that can see it. There are more
people doing it because they can see it. It's a classic monkey see, monkey do. Okay, and now listen. And we are going into this. You said, I said, you said. Okay.
Well, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna have to play back. We're gonna have to play back the tape.
Of course we are. So before we just keep let's get off this merry-go-round.
I just wanted to tell you that I was a little confused, and I just wanted you to know what I was hearing, which is fine.
The point that I was trying to make was that it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's so much more important now than ever to try to take the risk of being honest and vulnerable for the chance of meeting someone that will give you the same in return, and be able to just let your hair down, let your cards down, and get to really know one another at the core. I mean, you know, in a relationship, what is it, 10, 15, maybe 20% tops is intimacy. The rest is, you know, relationships, relating to each other. You know, so who do you have a better relationship than with anybody in the world? Either your best friend, right? So at the core, you have to be best friends. You have to be able to relate to each other. And friends are honest and open with each other. You know,
I mean, not all the time, but
okay, but best friends are. Like, long-time best friends are they know each other deep down to the core.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're always honest and open, because I could say this from experience. Some of my best friends, I don't always tell them.
Okay, I understand that.
There are things I may not tell them.
I understand that. But still, there is a level of open and honesty that you have with that person that you have with no one else.
Oh, for sure, yes.
Yes, so,
for sure.
So you have to, so I feel that, I know that it's always been my objective to strive for that in my partner, to have those two things together. As long, you know, combining those two things, I think, has been successful for us, you know, in the longevity of our relationship. But again, it's not an easy road. It's a lot of risk. It's a lot of, you know, opening yourself up and being vulnerable and exposing things about yourself to the person, and, you know, leaving it up to them to either accept you or judge you for what it is that you're saying. But I've always felt that the risk is always worth the reward.
Yes, and you like to take things down to brass tacks. Evo's like, you know, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very much like, it's you know, I always try to evaluate risk versus reward. So if I'm gonna risk something, I need to know what the reward is, and if the reward is not worth the risk, then I'm not taking the risk. You know what I'm saying? So
and I look at things very differently. I'm definitely a little bit more philosophical when it comes to things. I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'll just fucking figure it out.
Yeah,
I'll see how the shit works out. I mean, I'm not gonna go fucking bungee jumping off a bridge, but I definitely will take a risk with not necessarily always knowing what the reward is. But anyway, funny we talk about social media. So let's kind of roll into our next topic. That actually rolls us into our next topic. So more recently, I was scrolling through. I don't really. It was probably Instagram, because I don't have Facebook. So it was either Instagram or Twitter. It was one of those two, because it definitely wasn't TikTok, because it was like a post of some sort. And I came across this app that was called the Likewise app, and it's an app where you put in books that you have read. And then the app will then recommend books that are likewise to the books you have read. So basically what it does is it kind of helps you find books that are in the same genres or the same topics, or maybe similar to the authors, to kind of keep your reading interest going, and I guess in those categories. And when I saw it initially, I was like, oh shit, this is dope. I think I'm going to download this. And like literally right when I was about to like press the fucking, you know, download app, I was like, wait a second. do I want this app to generate for me my thought process? And then that got me, of course, like, I don't know how this happens, but this is me. And I just literally said before that I think about things a little bit more philosophical. There are many times I come across something that is just, seems just very like whatever. And I'm like, hang on a second. And then a bitch will follow the white rabbit down a hole. And I thought about it and I said to myself, this is what's happening across all platforms at this point. So whether you are on Instagram, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on TikTok and on YouTube, once you start to watch, create or I think it's just basically watch or create or consume or create any sort of content. Mm-hmm. The social platform will then start to only feed you that sort of content.
Right, the algorithm.
Yeah. So I wanted to know what people thought about that. Is that something that you find favorable? Or is that something that you're just like, I kind of wish it was like after I watched that one video or I like that one video that my social media platform, whichever one you choose, it then would just still feed me random ass shit.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, as much as I love to watch cat videos, there are times that like me and my other son Mateo will be talking about like something that he's looking at on his TikTok and it's so starkly different from what I'm looking at. And I'm almost sometimes finding myself being like, I kind of wish that I would see these things because I feel like that's like part of the journey of like life is to be exposed to new things. But if we're constantly being fed the same things, and it's not even just the content we're consuming, it's fucking ads. If I look up a white bathing suit, the next thing I know, I have fucking 20 advertisements in my platforms trying to sell me some sort of white bathing suit. And I'm just like, we kind of thought we cut the cord with like cable because we were like, who the fuck wants to see commercials? Right. But now the algorithm has it's gotten better. I think about it like the Matrix. Like the Matrix tweaked itself the fuck out. The Matrix is like, oh, they don't want to see commercials that we just feed to them. Now we're gonna give them exactly what they're looking for, and that shit creeped me the fuck out.
So I kind of found a way around that.
Okay.
And it was a simple solution. It's not 100%.
Okay.
But it definitely improved those weird, like, I'll say something and then 10 minutes later I got to add in my phone about it. Or I'll search something and then I go onto another social media platform and then there's an ad about it.
Yeah.
I turned off Siri.
Okay. I've actually heard this theory before.
I turned off Siri and I've had Siri off for quite some time. And
wait, let me stop you there. So ladies and gentlemen that are watching us tonight, please let us know if that you have done this yourself and is it working for you?
Yes.
I am going to test this.
Let me tell you something. I've turned off Siri. I want to say it's been over 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I have not been getting ads. I have not been getting random pop-ups. And all those things of like where I would either say something or I would search something and all of a sudden, now there's also other settings that you have to go into your phone. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there's ad settings in your phone that you can turn off so that you're not sharing or the phone is not suggesting ads based on certain things that you're doing on the phone. So I turned that off a long time ago, right? Because I came across something that that revealed that information for me. I was like, yeah, I actually want that. I feel like I was getting too much of like all these random things, and it was just coincidental.
Well, you also have Facebook, which I feel like Facebook is filled with that shit.
Right. But again, somehow the phone is the primary access to be able to release that information to Facebook and to all these other platforms, right? The phone has to have permission to do it first, right? So you grant Facebook and whatever all these other ones to like.
You grant them permission to your data.
Permission to your data, right? But your phone has to give the data, right? So there's a setting in your phone that you can cut that off.
Okay, so that speaks for the advertising,
right?
But that doesn't speak for how the algorithm in YouTube and TikTok and Instagram will then start to curate your feed just for you.
Right. So yes. So that's what
I'm wondering if there's a way to stop that.
There possibly is, right? But again, that's on the social media platform side. They have full control over that.
Yeah, I know. And it's based on what you're liking or what you're consuming or what you're watching.
Right.
So there is one way that I do it. So when I go on YouTube, I can only do this on YouTube. I go on YouTube on my profile. And of course, when I go into what's trending or the For You page, it gives me things that I've seen already. You know, it's going to give me the artists that I like to see, the music that I generally look up, makeup videos, or, you know, like I love to watch home improvement videos, all that kind of stuff. Other podcasters and stuff like that. But then I go into YouTube under a blocked IP address. And then the YouTube is just in generic. And I find stuff that way that I have never. And I do that sometimes for us and for this show because, like, I kind of want to know what other people are seeing. I especially did that during the candidacy of the president because I felt like I was constantly being fed the same rhetoric over and over and over and over again. And I was like, all right, I need to go and find information in a different realm, but I need to do it by blocking my IP address and not going into YouTube on a signed in Google Gmail,
right?
Because then they were just going to constantly, and I say they and I mean YouTube is just going to constantly keep feeding me the same shit. I have not figured out how to do that with Instagram and Instagram and TikTok unless I was to create another profile where then I like didn't act like Gina.
Right.
But then that at the same time that becomes a little difficult because I'm gonna still like stuff on it, and then that page or that profile is then gonna curate to that shit too.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that, you know, like there's, you know, nothing is for free. And so when you're on these platforms and you agree to the user agreement, you have to understand that, you know, that we're the product.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So they need to be able to generate.
When you said that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Yeah, we're the product. You know, they need to be able to figure us out so that they can feed us stuff that in turn they can make money on.
I'm as you talk to me, I just think about the last Matrix when he's talking to like the machine.
Yeah.
And he's like negotiating with the machine about like, okay, listen, you can continue to have the Matrix, but you can't do XYZ.
Yeah.
Like, do we have to negotiate with the machine?
We are consumers, right? So in order for businesses to understand how they market their products to consumers, which is the end goal, is to get your product into the hands of a consumer, they need to be able to understand consumer behavior.
Yeah.
Right? So these platforms are studying the consumer behavior so that they can in turn reach out to product producers and put the product into the consumer's hands perfectly. You understand?
No, I completely understand.
So at the end of the day, you know, you really have to kind of cut off the platform. Because by being on it for free, you're not paying to be on it. Mm-hmm. You have no rights as far as to your data goes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
You don't have any rights to anything on these platforms.
Right. So they're providing you with some type of source of entertainment, and in exchange, you're giving them your data. You know, and just who you are as a person, so that they can use that and put something in your hands so that you can consume.
Yeah. I was just talking to you today about how every time I scroll through TikTok and it's like 5 things you need from Amazon. I'm like, nope, just keep going, bitch, because a bitch don't need any of this shit.
You know what's one more thing I wanted to say. One thing I don't like about, especially TikTok and now and Instagram too. I don't feel like Facebook does it as much, and I could be wrong, but it's that whole like as soon as you start liking things and you start like watching certain videos, the algorithm picks it up and all of a sudden it starts just feeding you and feeding you and feeding you the same thing. It takes away the ability to discover things.
That was my whole point of this conversation.
Was your point, right? Yeah.
I was just like, it removes the ability to find new things.
Yeah.
And that is why I go on YouTube with a blocked IP address.
You're no longer searching things, and then all of a sudden you finally discover what it is that you're looking for and then feel rewarded. You're just spoon fed all this stuff.
Watching more recently, I was watching Indian news on the blocked IP address when I go on YouTube. That would never be in my feed.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what the hell I was watching, but because, obviously India, currently is experiencing extreme hardship when it comes to COVID. So I somehow wound up on this like news feed on YouTube where they were talking about it. And I felt like I was getting the unfiltered version versus the filtered version.
I believe
and I found it really interesting. And you know what led me to do that was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan talks about that shit all the time. He talks about how, he loves pool. He likes to play pool. And he would say that he was going on YouTube and he was searching up pool thing. And then the next thing he knew, every time he went on YouTube, it was just like, he found nothing but pool. And he was like, so now he uses ExpressVPN, which basically doesn't exchange your data, doesn't hold your information. And it's like you always go through like a blocked IP address. Right. So you're always discovering something new. So like, I'm not willing to pay for a VPN. So there's sites that you can go to, and then there's also search engines that I've introduced you to, DuckDuckGo, where you search anonymously.
Right.
There's been even times that we're on DuckDuckGo, and when you go to play a video, it says if you watch the video in this app, they're going to acquire your data. Yeah. Watch the video in our search engine, and I'm all like, what the fuck, bro? It's the Matrix. So we're actually not going to go longer. Well, we've actually, I think, already gone a little bit longer than an hour. We usually go an hour and a half, but we're not going to go that long tonight. But we want to leave the viewers with a question. Because recently I read an article that said that the state of New Jersey has the best pizza.
And take that, New York.
evil going sideways already. So I want to leave the viewers with this question, and the reason why I'm going to leave you with this question is because I'm born and raised a New Yorker, and I thought and believed that New York had the best pizza. And this may be an unpopular opinion. I think pizza from Chicago is trash. I've had pizza from Chicago. No. And so when I heard this, or I read this, that New Jersey has the best pizza, I'm not going to front. I've had some great pizza in New Jersey. There's literally this one guy that I've ate pizza from New Jersey that a bitch still drop a tear because he closed. But anyway, Evo and I want to ask you to leave us with your favorite pizza place and why. Like, I need to know facts. I need to know, do they have thin crust? Is the sauce kind of sweet? Is the crust have bubbles in it? Right. Does like the cheese slide off when you pull the pizza out?
When you bite, is the bottom crunchy and crispy, but yet on the inside the dough is it's a little soft.
It's a little soft.
Yeah.
Or like is the bottom of the pizza real dusty? I know that sounds
like flowery.
Flowery, dusty. When I say I need to know facts, I need to know facts. Details. Why this pizza place is the shit. Because then maybe Evo and I will go and taste the pizza from there. Because I'm about eating pizza. Because when we first moved to the town we live in now, I ate pizza from every single pizzeria until we found the pizzeria that we liked.
Here's a funny thing that I think that I didn't know this because I haven't traveled as much as people that have told me this, but from what I'm understanding, like outside of like the East Coast, and I'm talking about like Jersey and New York, around the rest of the country, pizza's trash. I
have experienced this firsthand.
I know you're not, but you've told me this.
I've traveled.
I've been told this by many other people who travel.
Yeah, I've traveled. I would say I've experienced a good part of the Midwest and like Middle America, and I tried pizza from everywhere because like that's what I do. I'm like, yo, I want pizza. I want to say by far the worst pizza that I've ever had was in New Orleans. I know you don't go to New Orleans for pizza, but like I don't always want to eat seafood. I was looking for a slice of pizza in New Orleans for a good 30 minutes and finally found one, and it was disgusting. So, do I think that we are super fortunate in the tri-state? For sure, because I've also heard Philly has some good pizza. So again, we're going to leave this with you and we're going to close. We want to know where the best pizza is at and why it's the best pizza. I said I need facts.
Details. Like I want you to describe it with your eyes closed.
Yes. Like when you bite into it, does the cheese like string? I need to know.
Like you were born with no eyes and no ears, just a mouth and a
sensation.
Nose. That's all I want to know.
But again, we thank you so much for joining us. And
As
since
always.
this will be pre-recorded, please comment, please like if you're enjoying this content. We would definitely love to hear and read the comments from this live, non-live, because then we want to be able to comment it on our next actual live stream, which will be the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. But until then, we will see you next Friday. Peace out.